recording, Rabbi.
Go ahead. Beautiful.
I'm recording.
Chag
Sameach, Hanukkah Sameach, everyone. Thank you, Rabbi, for the introduction. And I love our pre-session conversations. I was telling Rabbi a few minutes ago that every time after we talk, he throws me in different directions, and it makes me learn more and think more and be more creative. So I've been running around hills around Jerusalem, even more than usual. Because I love to hike and love to be outside. And I went to places where the Maccabees were fighting, the Hasmoneans. And I will take you today not only to talk about the history of the battles of the Maccabees. We'll talk, of course, about Hanukkah in Israel, and we'll discuss the two main ideas of Hanukkah. One is the Nis, the miracle of the oil, the miracle purifying the temple, having oil enough for 8 days of lighting the menorah. And the second thing, not less important, is seeing Hanukkah as an idea of bravery, of fighting for your ideals, going out there, and as they say, if you build it, they will come. Let's go and build it. Let's do it. Let's stop with the thought and the prayers even. Let's put them aside, and maybe together with the thought and the prayer, have some action, have some, fighting for what you believe in, living for what you believe in. And I'm going to talk about those concepts. And at the end of our tour, we'll get a chance to talk more about the Jewishness of the Jewish state of Israel. I'll tell you what Hanukkah looks like right now in Israel. I live just outside of Jerusalem in a moshav, a little community under Yad Vashem. If you've been to Yad Vashem in that beautiful forest, that's where I live. I've been a tour guide for 20 years, got married 4 months ago to Vered during COVID, and I was born in Phoenix. That's why you hear my English, but you probably also hear my Hebrewish, because when I was 8-year-old, my parents moved from Arizona, where my dad was a rabbi in Phoenix, to Beersheba, from desert to desert. So today, we're not going to go down to the desert of Israel. We will discuss Hanukkah, the miracle, the heroism, the fighting for your ideals, and one key word, Maccabee, the Maccabees. Who is the Maccabee? Who is the modern day Maccabee? So just to get us started, I think it's very important to start with a sufganiyah. Just tell me if you see the screen, the yummy sufganiyot. They used to be like 2 shekels each. As you know, these sufganiyot these days are like 20 shekels each. You buy them at Roladin, anywhere around Israel. And that's one of the ideas of oil. It's making the latkes that I made yesterday for Vered, my wife. And we had great latkes, levivot in Hebrew. And it's the sufganiyah. Common denominator is a lot of oil connecting to that miracle with that can of oil that lasted for 8 days. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if they're talking about this in the States, but one of the main things that everybody's talking about today before we go into history is the country of Morocco. And Morocco and Israel, only 4 or 4.5 hours of flight time direct to Morocco, but when I guided the last few tours in Morocco for Ramah, Israel, and other organizations, I had to go through Europe. Well, now we're going to have an agreement, some kind of peace agreement, diplomatic relationship that will allow us to go direct to Casablanca, to travel through and not to hide anymore. And when I say hide, the King Muhammad VI, up until last week, was not really talking about Israel freely, even though he had a lot of respect for Israel. Him and his father, Muhammad VI, in 2018, actually, this is him, he actually made sure that every school in Morocco will learn about the Holocaust. So why am I going on and on about this relationship between Morocco and Morocco's king and Israel? Because I think this is what many people see today as the miracle of Hanukkah, or a big beginning of a new era in a way, a Muslim country that is making official peace, official relationship with the state of Israel. It's in the news. They call it the Nis of Hanukkah. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you all the way back from Morocco, back from today, back to the time of really the miracle of Hanukkah, the battles of Hanukkah. And I want to specifically show you an area that is a little bit west and a little bit north of Jerusalem. So northwest of Jerusalem, there is a place called Ayalon Canada Park. A lot of Canadian Jews gave money for that park. That's where the name comes from. The name of the valley is Ayalon. Then, if you look closer in the park, you may be able to see there's a bunch of hills here. And on one of these hills, there was actually a place called Emmaus, E-M-A-U-S. And Emmaus was a Greek and a Seleucid, I should say, not only Greek. It wasn't only Greeks we were fighting. It was Greeks and Turks and many other people that were part of the Seleucid Empire and the Seleucid army. And they had an army base here in Israel, near Ayalon Park, in the foothills of Israel, in between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Now, stay with me on the map. I think this is very important. Just above the Ayalon Park, just above the old Greek Seleucid park, there's a place called Modi'in. Well, the Hasmonean dynasty, including Father Matityahu, son Judah the Maccabee, and other sons of Matityahu, they come from a city called Modi'in. The revolt of the Hasmonean dynasty, and later on the Maccabees, against the Seleucid very powerful army starts in Modi'in. So I want you to look at the proximity between Modi'in and this army base of the Seleucids, and then go with me a little bit to the right, meaning to the east, towards Yerushalayim. And I'll tell you why I'm showing you so many maps. Here's Yerushalayim, here's Jerusalem. And right above Jerusalem, a little bit to the west, there's a place right over here that we call Nebi Samuel. This hill is called Nebi Samuel. Nebi Samuel in the Bible is known as a place called Mitzpah. Why is this important? Here's the full picture. I showed you Modi'in. I showed you Park Canada. And now I want to say that the army base of Judah, the Maccabee, son of Matityahu, was up here in the hills of Jerusalem, a little bit northwest of Jerusalem. Now, there was a battle between the Seleucids and between Judah the Maccabee. So basically the Jews are here, the Seleucids are here, and in the third out of 8 battles, this is the year 165 BCE, battle number 3 out of 8 battles, the Greek are going to send a commando unit from here, from the foothills, lower hills, Ayalon Park of today, Park Canada, and they're going to walk up in the middle of the night, all the way to where the Jews are hiding, specifically the Maccabees, some of them from the Hasmonean dynasty, some of them who joined later. The Maccabees were the fighters. Maccabee actually means a hammer. In Hebrew, Maccabee comes from the word makevet, a hammer, someone that's strong. When I say Judah Maccabee, that's a nickname saying this Judah guy, he's strong. He's like a hammer. But Maccabee is also an acronym. Maccabee is an acronym for the words Mi Kamocha Ba'elim Adonai. Who is like you amongst the gods, Adonai? This is not only a war between people. These are 2 religions. It's polytheism. There are no gods. There is one God. Judah the Maccabee, in his name, the acronym of his name, Maccabi or Maccabee, is who is like you amongst the gods, Adonai. You are the only one. The Greeks, the Seleucids, are coming up the hill. They find no one in the base of Judah the Maccabee. Nobody's there. Judah the Maccabee took his commando guerrilla warfare units. He had intelligence that this is going to happen. He would be attacked in his home base, and he went around all the way to the base at Emmaus, at Park Canada of today, and he burnt up. He destroyed the camp of a Seleucid general called Bakchides. Now, the Seleucids come back after not finding the Jews on top of the hill, and they're all tired. This is like 10 miles. They have to walk all the way down. It's dawn. They're coming closer and closer to their own base. They want to get a shower. They want to have breakfast. They want to rest. Then Judah the Maccabee has an ambush, and he basically destroys the entire army down over here. This was battle number 6. Please understand the Seleucid Empire is the strongest army in the world back then. I'm talking about the 2nd century BCE. The revolt back in the city of Modi'in starts in 167 BCE. There's battles all the way to 160 BCE, 8 different battles. And we managed to win, the Maccabees, managed to win 6 of those battles. In fact, this was one of the army bases of Judah the Maccabee. This was a Hasmonean Maccabee army base. It was built in the time of Judah the Maccabee, and that's why archaeologists think this place that today is called Nebi Samuel, look at that mosque, later on there were Muslims here, was built 2,200 years ago. Today it's called Nebi Samuel, maybe hinting to the fact that Samuel, the prophet, right, was the one who actually was buried here. But this is also the place that was a Hasmonean Maccabee army base. So 6 battles we win, 2 we lose. And here is what I did yesterday with my drone at Park Canada. I walked up the hill. Check this out. This is taking footage from above. You could see a little bit of the archaeology. I'll play it again in a moment. And this is what a tell looks like. A tell is layers and layers of civilization of different people that are building on top of each other, and it becomes an unnatural mountain built by man. This is the army base of Emmaus. This is where Judah came with soldiers and attacked. So yesterday when I went there, oh, and here you could see some more of that archaeology. That's me right over there. And up in the sky is the drone taking the pictures. It's pretty cool. And you could see a group of Israelis actually hiking there. I love it because when I was a teenager, I loved hiking. I still do. It's like my bug. That's what I love. And these are teens, 16-year-olds, part of a youth movement that are going on a hike during the holiday of Hanukkah. That's what you do. You have 8 days of chofesh, of vacation, so you go hiking. And they came up to a place where the Maccabees fought, and they're telling them the story. The guide was telling them the story. That's my wife, Vered, that's my sister, Shira, and that's me looking down at the drone. And I wanted to show you the view to the other side, to the far west, where it's much more flat towards the Mediterranean. This is the army base called Eked in Hebrew, but also Emmaus, where the Seleucids were actually parking, and from here they were attacking the Maccabees. Now, there's a sign there, and the sign says the word Bakchides in Hebrew. Bakchides was actually the man who was the general of this army base. He's one of the big generals of the Seleucids. This was the gate that they found dating back to the time of the Hasmoneans, 2,200 years ago, and we actually found it on the top of the hill. So it's pretty cool when I could not only tell a story, but find the actual army base and try to envision, maybe imagine what happened here when Judah tricked the Seleucids and won battle number 3 against the Seleucids. Now look at me for a moment. There were 8 battles, 4 and 4, just like the candles of the Hanukkah, 4, 4, and in the middle there's one candle called the Shamash. After the 4 first battles, this is a cool way to remember it, there were 8 battles. After the first 4 battles, we came into the Temple Mount and we purified the temple. We lit the menorah. The oil lasted for 8 days. And then there were 4 more battles. We lost 2 of the battles. Judah the Maccabee died in one of those last battles. His brother Jonathan takes over. Later on, Simon, another brother, will take over. And by the year 141 BCE, many years later, we'll kick out the Seleucids out of Jerusalem totally. But the revolt, the peak of the revolt, the biggest success was coming into the Temple Mount that was controlled by the Seleucids, the same empire that forced us to eat pork, not to keep Shabbat, to not have a bris for a born son after 8 days, basically not to do everything that's important in Judaism. They came into the temple, robbed the temple from its gold, from the money that was there, just to pay off war debts. So you could see why Matityahu's father of Judah Maccabee was not going to give in when the Seleucids came into the city of Modi'in in 167 BCE, and he said 3 words that will change history. Mila Adonai Elai. Who is with God? Who is with Adonai? Come with me. We're not going to let this happen. We're not going to eat pork. We're not going to sacrifice to pagan gods. There's only one God. Let's not forget that, even if we have to fight. Matityahu dies after a year. Judah takes the lead of the Hasmonean dynasty. More people are joining the Maccabees, the Hammers, the fighters. Some people aren't. Some people are going with the Seleucids. Some of them are even the priests at the temple. You know, the Hasmoneans were priests themselves. So when they saw that the priesthood was bought with money from, control in the temple was bought from the Seleucids, they thought, you can't do this. You're only a Kohen, a priest, if your father was a Kohen. You can only worship and work in the temple as a Kohen Gadol, as a high priest, if you're from that specific family. And there's a way to do it. It's not by buying off the priesthood. So there were a lot of good reasons to start this revolt, but not everybody was into fighting against the strongest army in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the story of Hanukkah is always tied in with Jerusalem. I took this just on Thursday at the end of a very cloudy day. I went up to Mount of Olives. This picture is taken from Mount of Olives. If you've never been there on your next visit to Israel, it is the best lookout over the old city. This is the Temple Mount. You could see the Dome of the Rock. You can even see right over here, I'll zoom in a little bit. You could see the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa in Arabic and in Hebrew means it's on the edge. And the miracle of Hanukkah happens in Jerusalem. So you have to imagine that, take a look at this for a moment, that the Maccabees come up to the temple. Look at how the temple used to look. Can you see the temple on the right side? Right? This is what the temple used to look. It was right over the place of the Dome of the Rock. Now, let me do that just one more time. So this is what Jerusalem looks like today. And back in the time of the Hasmoneans, the Maccabee fighters came into this building of the temple on the right side, and they lit up the menorah. And the oil lasted not for 1 day, but for 8. And there was a feeling, wow, we did it. This is amazing. But really, the story of Hanukkah is, we always remember it, and we talk about the Chanukiah. But the story is about lighting a menorah for 8 days. The menorah with 7 candles, not with 8 and a shamash like the Chanukiah, was lit by Judah the Maccabee, and not Judah the Maccabee, but people who came after Judah the Maccabee as leaders, the Maccabees, and it lasted for 8 days. The oil lasted for 8 days. This becomes the emblem of the state of Israel. Did you ever see this menorah in person? Have you been to the Knesset, the parliament? Well, right in front of the Knesset, there's a very artistic menorah. There's a lot of art on every one of these candles here and every one of these branches. And the emblem of Israel today is actually the menorah that later on was taken by the Romans in 70 CE when the temple was destroyed. We don't know where the menorah is today. There's a lot of Indiana Jones people looking for the menorah till this day. But it's not only the menorah. The emblem is also 2 branches of olive tree, of olive branches, and that is a symbol of peace. So I think it's very interesting. The menorah that is connected to Hanukkah becomes the emblem of the state of Israel. Then the Chanukiah that we light today with 8 candles is about the 8 days of lighting the menorah. The menorah only has 7 candles. So that's just an interesting fact. And that same Thursday, when I went up to Mount of Olives, I went up with Vered. Vered means rose in Hebrew. That's my wife, to the Temple Mount. Now, it's a little bit sad that during Corona time, COVID time, there's nobody there. But I got to tell you, as a photographer and as someone that likes to wander the land, it's so amazing to go up to these places. There's nobody there. So, it's just a very special atmosphere. It was very dark, very dramatic that day. And this is the El-Aqsa Mosque, which is on the southern part of the Temple Mount. This is last Thursday. Jerusalem and the Maccabees, very shortly. I know a lot of you or all of you have been to Israel at a time, at least envisioned it. And now that we are in Hanukkah, I just want to mention a few things that you've seen in Jerusalem and that are connected to the battles of the Maccabees and the times of the Hasmoneans. The wall called the first wall built around Jerusalem, meaning including the city of David down over here, and the upper city where a lot of the priests used to live. Remember, Hasmoneans were priests, a dynasty of priests. This is the wall that was built in the Hasmonean time. Later on, the second and the third wall were built. The blue in this map is actually the wall that we have these days. Compare that to the wall. Look at what I'm marking now, going left on the first wall, down south to Mount Zion, and to the city of David over here. So this was the old city in the time of the Hasmoneans with the temple. You may have seen it when you went to see the Holy Land model that was moved to the Israel Museum just a few years ago. Here's the wall. Here's the temple. We're looking from Mount of Olives to the west. There's the temple. There's the Hasmonean wall. It went around the very fancy houses of the upper city and went even around this area called the city of David. So that was built in Hasmonean time. When we enter through one of the main gates of Jerusalem, through the Jaffa gate, stay with me and take a quick look to the right, you'll see there's a big wall. It's a wall of a fortress. You know this fortress because this is the Tower of David. King David was never here, but this fortress built in the time of the Hasmoneans originally, right? Was named after King David, who was the one who conquered the pagan city called Jebus and turned it into Jerusalem 3,000 years ago. So 2,200 years ago, more or less, the Hasmoneans will build parts of the bottom of what you see here, a fortress in the western side of Jerusalem. Let me turn the camera around to show you the Hippikus Tower. In the bottom of this tower, check this out. This is how they used to build in Hasmonean time. So Jerusalem, really all of Israel, but more Jerusalem is a mishmash of different times. Hasmoneans are before the Romans, right? Before the time that Herod the Great renovated and added and built so much. Right underneath that, there's a lot of building happening in the time of the Hasmoneans. Because after the year 141, the Greek, the Seleucids, right? And I keep saying Greek because some of the rulers of the Seleucid Empire are from the area of Greece, but they, on the map, you saw this, they go all the way to Iraq. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey. Antiochia is a city in the area of Turkey. Antiochus IV was the one who fought the revolt against the Maccabees. So we say Greek, but the fighters against the Jews, the Maccabees, were Greek, were Turks, were Syrians, other countries that were part of this Seleucid Empire army. And this is what the Hasmoneans did after the year 141. When the Seleucids left, we kept building around the Temple Mount. This is Mount of Olives on the top, but these are beautiful, beautiful tombs. This is a family called the Sons of Khazir, not Khazir, not pork, but the Sons of Khazir, who were priests in the time of the Second Temple, were buried just outside of the Temple Mount. And they could be buried there and they could build things around the Temple Mount because at some point the kings become Hasmonean dynasty. The Seleucids are gone after 141, after we take their army base. And we managed for a while to stay very strong with our connection to Judaism against Hellenism. But very soon, my friends, the architecture, the names of the leaders, the culture becomes more and more Hellenistic. If Judah the Maccabee knew what would happen 100 years later, with some of the names of the king, Alexander, Yanai, Antigonus, those are not Jewish names, right? These burial places I showed you. And one last thing I want to just show you as a place, maybe you visited the Western Wall tunnels. This is a water tunnel that was built by the Hasmoneans to bring water to the area of the Temple Mount. Water could come up to here. Where's the water coming from? Rain. In a lot of reservoirs in the northeastern side of the old city. This is the Western Wall tunnels, just to give you an idea. Watch your step, please. We're going to go down a few steps to see the Western Wall tunnels, and you will see why it's called the Western Wall tunnels, because these are stones from the time of when you go to the Western Wall. These are the same stones. This is a part of the Western Wall. This is built by Herod. So the water tunnel was built in the time of the Hasmoneans, before Herod, before the Roman period. But this is the Western Wall tunnels I'm walking you through. And I'm sorry, I'm going to do this really quick because I think it's really cool to see if you haven't seen before. Some of you have. These ladies are praying in front of the Holy of Holies. They're standing right in front of where the Holy of Holies used to be. This is the Western Wall tunnels, and even there's a part from the Hasmonean period. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop here for a moment, and I want us to breathe deep and sing with me this song, and there's a reason for it. We kindle these lights to commemorate the saving acts, miracles, and wonders which you have performed for our forefathers in those days at this time through your holy priests. Hanerot halalu she'anu madlikim, hanerot halalu anu madlikim, al hanisim ve'al haniflaot ve'al hateshuot ve'al hamilchamot she'asita la'avotenu, she'asita la'avotenu bayamim hahem, bayamim hahem, bayamim hahem, bazman hazeh. So I love singing, and we're going to sing this in front of the sixth candle of Hanukkah just very soon here in Israel, and 7 hours later in the US, in North America. But I brought this text to show you that the focus of the text is that you, God, have performed all these wonders and miracles. This is not so much about what we did, it's about the miracles that you performed. Why is this so important? I want to take you to another text. And this text is by a man you all know. His name is B.Z.H. Benjamin Ze'ev Herzl, or Ze'ev Benjamin Herzl, says in the end of one of his books, Yehudim niflaim, yitzmechu min ha'adama, shuv yakumu haMaccabim. Wonderful Jews will grow out of this land. The Maccabees will rise again. Herzl says to the people back at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th, we are the new Maccabees. Zionism coming back to the land, we are the new Maccabim. We are the new Maccabee. Later on in the 1930s, a man called Mordechai Zeira, and this is the last text I want to show you. It blew me away. I keep reading this again and again in the past few days, but look at the words. We'll read the English first, but I want to hear the Hebrew words too. We're carrying torches. This is my translation. I couldn't find a translation. It's written in Hebrew. We're carrying torches in dark nights. The paths shine under our feet, and he who has a heart, who is thirsty for light, will direct his eyes and his heart towards us, and he will come. A miracle did not happen to us. We did not find a can of oil. We carved in the rock until we bled, and the light eventually came. Anu nosim lapidim beleilot afelim. Nes lo kara lanu. We didn't have a miracle. Pach shemen lo matzanu. Basela chatzavnu adam vayehi or, until we had light. Those two texts are so different. Is Hanukkah about the miracle that God made? Or maybe it's about, just like the Zionists are going to say in the 1900s, like this song that was written in the 1930s is saying, we the Zionists are not waiting for a miracle. We're not waiting for God to save us. We are the new Maccabees, just like Herzl says. Don't you get it? Don't you get it? We are the Maccabees. Guys, join us. If your heart is here, if you're looking for light, look at the text. You're looking for join us. Come with us. You may bleed, there may be dam. Look at this word, it's very powerful. It's very powerful. I sang this when I was a kid, and they sing this on every Yom HaAtzmaut on Mount Herzl. And I never read it this way. They sing this when they're bringing the torches, the light, to light the 12 torches on that ceremony that starts Yom HaAtzmaut. Israel is not only about the help of God and a miracle. Yes, that's part of the story. The thought, the prayer, the connection to our God, but it's also about us. And this is what the Zionists are saying already in the 1900s, starting with Herzl. They're saying, we are the new Maccabees. We can't stand aside and wait for things to happen. We need to make things happen. So I want to show you what I'm talking about and why I'm getting so excited about this. Because I think many Israelis, and we'll talk about Israel and Hanukkah in a moment, but this is part of the story. I grew up in a kindergarten that taught me about the miracle with the oil and the menorah, and later on the Chanukiah, lighting the Chanukiah. And I ate a lot of sufganiyot and latkes. But how is our identity as Jews, as Zionists, connected to Hanukkah? Well, the story starts in 1907, my friends, when a group of students from Gimnasia Herzliya, a school in Tel Aviv, come up looking for the tombstones of the Maccabees. Why? Because they read in the book of the Maccabees that the Maccabees were buried in a place that could be seen out from the sea, and it was big, big pillars that you can find to give respect to those fighters of the family of the Maccabees. Well, this is built later on after 1907, much after, but those teens get up to the top of the hill by a city called Modi'in, and they look for an Arab, from the Arab village nearby, and they say, Salam alaikum. How's it going? Salam alaikum, shalom aleichem. And he says, Salam alaikum. And they say, do you know where the tombs of the Maccabees are? Did you ever hear about this idea? We read about it. We really want to find it. This is 1907. And he says, what did you say? The graves of the Jews? And they say, yes, the Jews. Forget Maccabees, the Jews. And he shows them a few tombstones. And they make this place a pilgrimage site because they believe that they found the grave of the Maccabees, mentioned in the writings of the book of Maccabees. Now, and this is 1912, and the bottom three words in Hebrew, it says, on the tombs of the Hasmoneans, right? So in 1912, it's not only the teens, but people are making pilgrimage on Hanukkah every year to make a connection with the Maccabees. They're making a connection because they think this is the place that they were actually buried. Later on, we'll find out it's not the place, but you know what? Those are details. That doesn't matter. They keep coming back, and they want to see the graves of the Maccabees because they believe in what Herzl said. They believe in what they're being taught, that we have to carry the torch. We have to bring the light. If it's young Maccabee Tza'ir, or the different organization in Israel that are called Maccabees, the new Zionism of the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even later is talking about the Maccabees being, the modern day Maccabees being us, the Zionists that are building the state, not waiting for a miracle. Now look at this. A ceremony takes place every year with going up to the graves of the Maccabees that turn out to be in that area, but not exactly where they found in 1907. But they even ran up with a torch, the race of the torch that goes all the way up to Jerusalem and other cities. And they did this year after year. In Hebrew, it's called Merot Halapid, the race of the torch. And later on, this kid, after completing the race, he's the last one to come up to Chaim Weizmann in 1948, president of the newborn state of Israel, and they're going to light the Chanukiah. When I kept looking at this Chanukiah, it stood out to me that I don't see this candle. There's something missing. But in any case, they're going to light the Chanukiah, and this is part of that race, or part of that Merot Halapid, the race of the torch, this idea that we are inspired by this time period of the Maccabee revolt. Just a short question, Rabbi. We have until, what is it in your
11:30.
11:30. Oh, okay, we're perfect. I thought, good, perfect. And I want to take you to something that you probably know of very well. This is the first Maccabeah, because it's not only about being a fighter, it's about the doing, about the action that is the inspiration of the Maccabees, strengthening your body, bringing Jews together from all over the world. This is the first Maccabeah in Tel Aviv of 1932. Did anyone in the crowd here join a Maccabeah? Did you participate in a Maccabeah? Maybe some of you did, or did you see one of the Maccabeah? Listen to the name. You know, the best basketball team in Israel, the best basketball team in Israel is this team. I am actually, just one second, I have to do something to share this better with, wait, no, we have that. I meant to do this. I want to now try. Tell me if you can hear the sound. Can you hear the sound? Maccabi Tel Aviv just won. Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball team just won the championship 1977. Who remembers that? Thank you to our fans. We have basketball. We are on the map and we're going to stay on the map, says Tal Brody, an American Jew who is a basketball player in Maccabi Tel Aviv. Maccabi Tel Aviv, Maccabi is strength. These are the hammers. This is the best team in Europe in 1977. What did that mean to go to Moscow and play CSKA Moscow and win in 1977? I am named after a Jew that lived in the the Soviet Union. My parents went there at that time. Amazing. Maccabi brings back the championship. So in Israel, when you say Maccabi, you're also talking about the basketball team. And I want to go back to this idea of calling different institutions in our everyday life Maccabees as a sign of strength. You have to remember that the Nes, this idea of a miracle, it happened po. It's not like the dreidel in the US. It's not Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin. What's Shin? Sham. It's not that the Nes, the miracle, happened there in Israel. Israelis really connect to this idea of Maccabees, and it's part of the culture, and Hanukkah is such a loved holiday also because it happened here. We hike through the land, and on our dreidels, it does say that the miracle happened here. The word po means here. And on Hanukkah, what you do is you connect to the land. You walk in the craters in the Negev desert. B'nai Akiva, that I was part of, the youth organization, Young Maccabi, Maccabi Tzair, another youth organization, the Scouts and many others, they go out in Hanukkah to the land to make that connection, to tell the stories of the Maccabees, but also to say, yeah, that was the past. How are we going to be the modern day Maccabees? But even when you go to the doctor these days, you go to Maccabi. Look at the word on the top right. You're going to Maccabi. And Maccabi is, in fact, the name of one of the main facilities of health in Israel. But what I found amazing, that the Jewishness of the Jewish state is everywhere. If you want to make an appointment on their website, of course, there's a Chanukiah, right? Sometimes you have the dreidel, sometimes you'll have the sufganiyah. So the word Maccabee and the concept of Hanukkah are a time of celebration, inspiration from the Maccabees, and also, yes, remembering the miracle. And that's why we have all the oily, yummy, very not healthy food, and we light the candles for 8 days on our Chanukiah. This is also something very big that happens in Israel every year on Hanukkah. Try and read this. This is Festigal, just like festival, the festival of 2020. These are all the big stars of the teens and the kids. Every year they come to Tel Aviv, to this big basketball stadium, and like 20,000 kids screaming for their idols, on TV. And they sing songs of Hanukkah, and they tell a story, a modern day story of Hanukkah. So they hear the story in different versions, and they connect to their Jewishness, not necessarily in a religious way, but also in a cultural way. So the Festigal happens every year on Hanukkah. This year, COVID, so there's no Festigal. The Festigal is not physically there, it's online. So there is one, but it's online. And I know my nephews are actually going to participate. Of course, in Jerusalem, and everybody's coming up to Yerushalayim, you see the Chanukiah on the walls of the old city. How beautiful is it? to hear these stories. I'm thinking like, as a father, you go, you teach your kids, your grandchildren, and then you walk to the place where this actually happened. This is the old city. 2,200 years ago, you say to your child, and he's listening to you with his eyes opened up. It happened here? Judah the Maccabee, this was here? The oil that lasted for 8 days, that was here? The fighters? It's amazing that you can actually do that in Israel. And to tell the story, you walk through the streets of Jerusalem. What a very Israeli thing that happens as part of the Jewishness of the Jewish state, as religious, non-religious Jews, they walk around Yerushalayim and they go on what is called a siyur Chanukiot, a tiyul, a hike, a walk, learning the story of Hanukkah in Jerusalem, but also looking for the different types of Chanukiot. In Hanukkah, you're not supposed to hide the miracle. We now have independence in our land. We're supposed to show and advertise the nest, the miracle. So for instance, in my house here, we light it on the window so people can see it from the outside. I'm sure you probably do the same thing in your synagogue or back home, but many people in the old city, this is the old city, they'll just light it together as a little neighborhood in the Jewish quarter. They'll light their Chanukiah outside. So people come and they learn about the different neighborhoods of Jerusalem. They see the Chanukiot, they eat 1 or 2 sufganiot, and it's just a lot of fun. Yesterday it was raining in Jerusalem, and I met a friend of mine who's a Jew from Uzbekistan, and I walked with him through Hanukkah. He wanted me to show him the atmosphere of Hanukkah. So I took him to the Chabad Chanukiah, the Lubavitch Chanukiah, which is in the center of the Zion Square. And every night Chabad will come here, and with music, singing, and dancing, will light the Chanukiah in the center of Jerusalem. But not only there, the Chanukiah is also lit in front of the Kotel and really all over Israel. So this is going to happen in a few days when the Chanukiah is totally lit. But I want to see if I can bring you to the Kotel right now to see if we could see some of the action at the Kotel right now. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is a live camera from the Western Wall. We're connecting with our brothers in Israel, with our other Maccabees of the world. Look to the bottom left, maybe you'll see a few of the lights of one of the Chanukiot, and you'll see the capsules so that only 20 will be in each area because of COVID. That's how the Kotel, the Western Wall, is separated right now. They actually do a very good job with this. And every night they have like a different, they have the chief rabbi of the Kotel that comes, Rabbi Rabinovich, and they have many other delegates, important people, ministers, even the prime minister will come to the Western Wall one of the nights and light for Jerusalem, for the old city, for the people of Israel, but really for all of the Jewish world, in the heart of the Jewish world in Yerushalayim. So I think it's a very powerful thing to see the dark and to see the light and to see Yerushalayim, where a big part of that miracle happened, what we were fighting for, as we are there right now. But I don't want to end with that. I want to tell you the following. When you go down south and you're on your way to Eilat, you come to a very interesting, pluralistic, partially conservative kibbutz called Keturah. And in Keturah, you have members of the kibbutz that were born in Israel, members that came from North America, South America. It's a pluralistic, traditional, and partially conservative kibbutz, and they really try to do things very creatively. This is a drawing in their dining room, and what you see in the drawing, and I'll show you real life in a moment, is how they bring the education of the idea of the Maccabees, Hanukkah, fighting for your land, living for your land, living for your ideals. They bring it to the bar and bar mitzvah year. So every year, the bar and bat mitzvah climb up the hill above Keturah. And there they have these huge barrels. They light them up for the whole Arava Valley. When you pass on the main road, you see a Chanukiah. Every day they run up there and light another, the right number of candles or barrels for that night. And it's seen all over the Arava desert. This is 40 minutes north, driving north from Eilat, in the middle of the desert. This young girl lit one of the barrels, one of the candles. This is her kibbutz. I got to tell you, walking up to the top of this steep hill, even during the day, is not an easy thing to do. So if you're ever down south in the area of the Arava Desert, Arava Valley, you can see in Hanukkah a very special way of educating and making it really a physical connection for the kids of the kibbutz becoming bar bat mitzvah, lighting their Chanukiah on the top of the mountain, saying to everyone, we're proud. It's not only because of the miracle that we're here, it's here because we're here, because we're making sure that we can be here, because we're making sure that we're staying Jewish, because we believe in all this and we'll live for it. This is what the Chanukiah looks like from the bottom. But look at that cliff. Imagine your 12-year-old grandson or son, daughter or 13-year-old son climbing up a hill like this to light a Chanukiah, comes down. He'll never forget this moment in his entire life. What did you do on your bar mitzvah? Oh, I lit the Chanukiah of Kibbutz Keturah down in the desert. That's something you remember, isn't it? This is the latkes meal and the orange soup that I made yesterday for me and Vered for lunch. She works at the Knesset and she had a day off, so we had a celebration of a lot of latkes. We didn't eat all of these, but it was really good. And of course, we can't end our journey through Israel and through the battles of the Maccabees, the journey of the Zionists making themselves the new Maccabees and the Jewishness of the Jewish state. We can't end this without the picture of Hanukkah, bringing it all together. The dreidel with the word pei, Nes Gadol Haya Po in Israel, right? Or Nes Gadol Haya Sham if you're anywhere else around the world. The sufganiyah, this is chocolate, but usually different kinds of jellies. And of course, the beautiful Chanukiah that is reminding us of the miracle of lighting the menorah with the 7 candles for 8 days with just a little bit of oils. So if I had to sum up in a half a minute everything I spoke about it, you can see that I'm excited about this, but I hope I didn't give you too much information. But today we talked a little bit about the history of the revolt, about Matityahu, Judah the Maccabee, the reasons they fought, where they fought around Jerusalem and around Modi'in. We talked about a specific battle in Emmaus, about the guerrilla warfare Judah the Maccabee used. We talked about the 4 different battles, and in between them, the purification and dedication of the temple. And we talked about the Israeli youth and Zionist movements being inspired by the Maccabees, seeing themselves as the new Maccabees. Finally, we talked about Israel in Hanukkah in 2020. How is that part of our life? The word Maccabee, the concept of being a strong Zionist, the concept of living for what you believe in, I think is something we bring very much from the holiday of Hanukkah. It's not just a holiday. Yes, it's not in the Tanakh. It's not, there's the book of Maccabees, but even though it's not in the Torah or in other prophets, it's definitely, I think, one of the most inspiring holidays. How could we have any revolt in history? How could we stand up to anyone else around us if we didn't have the Maccabees, if we don't see ourselves as inspired and able to be like them, to live and fight and mostly live for our beliefs? I want to say to you on this Hanukkah, just before I end and take your comments and questions, that this is not an easy time, like the song said, right? It's Leilot Afelim, it's dark nights, but definitely Hanukkah is a holiday that could bring some more light into our life. And I think one of the things that brings lights to me is to see the Jewish youth around the world connecting to holidays like Hanukkah, being inspired by the Maccabees, by modern day Zionism, and maybe even seeing themselves as the new Maccabees. I think everything is just going to get better and better and better as long as we keep the Jewishness of the Jewish state and the Jewishness really all over the world to be something that is our torch, our light, something that we're proud of. So thank you very much. I will stop over here and take a breath, and I'll pass it over to the rabbi or anybody who wants to make a comment.
We do have a few minutes for comments, and what we'll do, I guess, is ask you to unmute if you have a question. But first, Moshe, beautiful. Thank you so much for that panorama, a real panorama. I really enjoyed especially the drone pictures, and really the effort that you did to organize this and to put it together. Hanukkah is such a different experience in the diaspora, and I wouldn't even know where to begin to make this kind of contrast between Hanukkah as an expression of Jewish identity in America and Hanukkah here, and I guess the conversation really is, and you touched on this, the way that this connects Jews throughout the world, and your encounters with Americans as we visit, how is the surprise of Israel's Hanukkah? How does it manifest in visitors? I guess I'm trying to get that to the way that we experience it is so different, and
Right.
what do you notice from that? Yeah.
Right. I think, this year we don't have much tourists and winter break and Hanukkah and Christmas times, but when I'm guiding in December, the end of December every year, groups from North America and from other places around the world with the birthright groups, it's amazing to me the wow that people have. I keep saying again and again, when they see the Jewishness of the Jewish state, they say, wait, I didn't know that Israel was so Jewish. It's everywhere. It's in the newspaper. It's the menorahs and on the lamps in the street. It's lighting a Hanukkah everywhere. On the radio, they say what candle we're on today. And it's just like, wow, I'm part of this. No matter where I am in the world, if I live in New Jersey or in Sydney, Australia, I'm Jewish. I'm part of this light of Judaism. And I think that I'm very lucky to live these days in Jerusalem, where, look, Jerusalem has an interesting demographic, right? It's a mosaic of people, but you definitely feel in the entire weeks around Hanukkah this special atmosphere. Just like maybe Christmas in the States for the general population, you have this feeling of the holidays, Hanukkah and Christmas, but it's so powerful to even just walk down Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem or to go to the market, see the latkes and the sufganiot and the candle lighting and people dancing. And light is not just physical. It's really a metaphor of the feeling of what you have during this holiday. Families come together. It's amazing. So people are really impressed when they explore Israel during this time.
A year ago, I was in Israel for Hanukkah, or was it 2 years ago, and we were at a vegan restaurant. And in the middle of it was the evening, all of the waiters, they weren't particularly religious at all. They just broke out the Chanukiot. Everyone said it's time to light the candles. They lit the candles. It would never happen here. My daughter Nama lives in Tel Aviv, and she was showing her apartment to some people who want to rent the apartment, and the conversation turned to Hanukkah, and she said, "Did you light the Hanukkah candles yet?" And they said, "No." So to the clients coming to the apartment, she lit the candles, and that's an only in Israel experience as well. Anybody else with a comment, with any kind of question, or you'll have to raise your hand in some way or draw attention. Anybody? Marlene, go ahead, Marlene. Unmute yourself. Go ahead, unmute. There you go. We still can't hear you. Marlene, we can't hear you. No mute. You're still unmuted. Moshe, want to try and unmute her? Marlene?
Let's see if I can, one moment. I'm looking for her. It should say Marlene, right?
Yeah.
I don't see, I see Marcia Morris. I don't see Marlene. Is there a different name?
No, that's it. Okay. Why
I don't
we're
see.
not getting it?
I know, keep
Anybody
looking.
else?
Rabbi.
Sorry, you put it in the chat. You put it in the.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I don't see more. Oh, there. No, she's not muted. Marlene, you're not muted. So maybe it's your microphone or something.
Can't hear you. Your mic is off. So, all right,
I make a comment.
go ahead, Marlene. Write your comment and we'll read it. Okay, we obviously can. Steve, go ahead.
I put into the chat that, and this is for Moshe, Kibbutz Keturah was founded by young
Judea.
Judeans,
Right.
young Judea, and several of them still live there
Right.
back in the 70s. And we go there, and my kids go there on year course, and they spend anywhere from 2 weeks to a month there.
Right.
And we visited them last year, and they have a wonderful hotel.
A fantastic hotel, and young Judea till this day enjoys Keturah very much with the founders of the kibbutz. An amazing kibbutz.
So Marlene asks, is there music on the street and bus? Thanks for the enthusiastic duel. Music. Talk about music for a second on the street music.
You said talk to me?
Yeah.
Music. Well, it really is everywhere. You just have to go out to Jaffa Street or Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem. It's there, and especially right after the candle lighting. Well, we're not doing much of holding hands and dancing right now, but I was there last night. I was telling you in Ben Yehuda Street, it's action. You know, there's music, Maoz Tzur, Hanerot Halalu, the blessings everybody says together in the universal tune of the Baruch Atah, right? So everybody's, and like you said, Rabbi, it doesn't matter if you're religious, not religious. If you ever thought of keeping Pesach or Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, Hanukkah you keep, because I don't know, there's something, or at least you keep, and you're part of this idea as an Israeli, being a part of this cultural idea of Hanukkah. So the music is everywhere, the songs are everywhere.
Okay. Anybody else with a comment or a question?
Just a big thank you again.
Thank you.
For just a wonderful, wonderful program.
Thank you, Peter.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
We are all
Thank you.
veterans of our trips.
Yes.
So I guess this will be a good. Well, this is a good place to put the bow on the Sufganiyah. And
Yes, exactly.
And it must be candlelighting time for you, Moshe.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So
I'm waiting for
we'll
Vera
have
to come home, and we're lighting number
Beautiful.
6. Number
Beautiful.
6. Yes.
So on behalf of all of us here in your Zoom little gallery, first, thank you so much for this tour. I know you really went all out geographically, historically, culturally, and to organize the whole presentation. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again. We really will bring you back for different presentations as we have throughout this time, and we honestly can't wait to see you in person when we come on a trip. Hopefully it'll be soon. Okay.
Same here. Toda rabba and Chag Hanukkah Sameach. Take care.
Go.
Rabbi, I'll send you the recording. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.